Welcome back to the podcast. Jan Levine is here, and he is going to tell us about the ups and downs of life, about taking calculated risks, about even picking yourself up after you've been knocked down a little bit and making the most of your life, having this experience, this existence that is fun, rewarding, fulfilling, satisfying, where you can achieve your dreams and just do what you came to this earth to do, whatever that is for yourself or whatever you're discovering along the way. He is currently an agent, Banker's Life. He's an insurance sales representative from Charlotte, North Carolina. If you want to contact Jan throughout this conversation, I know me, when I listen to podcasts, sometimes I'm like, hey, that one thing he said, I think I need to talk to this guy. His LinkedIn page is linkedin.com/IN/JANMLEVINE. That's Jan Levine. And he's here to talk about many things, but his current offer is to convert your 401k, RSUs, NSOs, and equity compensation into tax efficient income. So Jan, we have a lot to talk about. Glad to be speaking with you.
It's great to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. And hello to everybody. And just one add-on: I work out of the Charlotte office for Banker's Life, but my permanent residence now is on the beach here in North Myrtle Beach, North Carolina. So I love it. I'm up in Charlotte, several days a week, but the rest of the time I spend down here in Myrtle Beach, and it's worked hard to get here. And my backyard is the Atlantic Ocean. I love it.
That's very nice. You have life figured out where you say, I'll work hard and I'll play hard and I'm at the beach, but I'm not always sitting on the beach. Sometimes I go in and get stuff done. And this day and age when you can work remotely, internet access, mobile phones, so much can be accomplished. And so as far as what your current focus and passion is, we introduced you a little bit, but in your own words, like what are you up to and what do you have to share with us?
Appreciate that. So I'm my official title, if you will, is a financial professional. I've been at this since the 1980s. I go way back to the predecessor of what many of you know as Ameriprise, the old Investors Diversified Services back in the 80s. I've had a career spanning that time where I've been involved in information technology at a pretty deep level, both hardware and software. Banker's Life is a 146-year-old company. We are the retirement specialist. We work with folks that are either pre-retirement or post-retirement, helping them to make retirement decisions in everything from setting up their Medicare properly to one of my passions being long-term care or extended care. And what I do probably most and most importantly is to help people protect their assets from the ups and downs of the stock market with some very interesting guaranteed income products.
Well, I love it. And I'm always looking to kind of tap into the I don't know what you'd call it, like some of these ideas that on the surface are boring, scary, difficult, and maybe somewhat of a struggle, because is it really that fun to talk about Medicare or about retirement or about protecting your assets? Well, maybe not at first, but it is important and we ignore it to our detriment. And if we wait too long, maybe we'll wish we'd paid it more attention. And it seems like if we're stuck in our own thinking, that's why we need to talk to someone like you who is excited about it, who can say, well, hey, like I can do a lot of the thinking, heavy lifting, and I do need you to make decisions here. And so that way, like the workload is shared. But then also when we hear about how you're excited about the possibilities, about how those later years can be a lot of fun and you can either travel or not have to worry about money or just have a plan if the worst happens, then that is something that we want to pay attention to and tap into, especially if it's just maybe temporarily uncomfortable. If we say, all right, I've just had all these just bad thoughts about it, let's take it seriously. And so when people talk to you or come to you, do they have any sort of similar sentiments to people say, oh, like old age, I'll never get old, I'll live forever, don't want to think about it? What do you say to them to kind of get them on board with your way of thinking?
Yeah, and great points, Robert, and I appreciate that. And most people, when I initially make contact with them, either through third-party introductions or referrals, which is where most of my, business comes from, or having attended events. Somebody will come up to me like the other day. I was at a coffee a get together up in Conway, South Carolina, and stood up, introduced myself, and at the end, this woman came over to me and she said, "You're just what I need. I've got a bunch of money in a 401k. I'm afraid to touch it, but I know if I don't do something with it, it's I'm more afraid that I'm going to lose it, and it's that fear of loss that I try to alleviate." Telling people that I'm well past 65 myself. I've been there. I understand that. I've rejoined the process of working for in my mind, the number one company in the retirement business, Banker's Life, 146-year-old company. We're the one-stop shop. What we do differently is we're one of the last, I think the last, belly-to-belly kitchen table companies. I do everything in person. The initial interview, generally Zoom or a phone call. But after that, I want to be in person across the kitchen table, sitting down, gaining their confidence, gaining their respect, showing them that we have no axe to grind. We're here to be advisors and helpers. I have a whole team in back of me that I can bring in, Medicare experts, long-term care experts, investment experts. I become the tip of the spear, so to speak, and bring in the experts as I need them. And it's a great way to gain the confidence and really be of value to my clients.
Well, wonderful. So basically, like how doctors that make house calls don't exist anymore. Now you're that, but for the financial services. I love the tip of the spear concept where you say, well, hey, I'm kind of like your front person and I have all these experts behind me who will help you figure this stuff out. And you're kind of mentioning a lot of kind of like tools in the toolbox that I used to not value very much. Some of these ideas like getting someone to have confidence or getting them on board with your idea and relating them, especially because my understanding about you and your story is that you've been through some things, right? You've been through those ups and downs of life. And many times we kind of change careers, change locations, have money, lose money. We've all gone through it, but we're afraid to share it with others. It shows weakness or who knows what. But then if we hear about someone else's kind of struggle roller coaster story and a podcast is a safe way to listen to that, right? Because someone doesn't have to share it with you. We can just hear it from you and find out about what you've been through. And it can be for sure, it's scary enough losing kind of things that you possess, right? It's scary enough losing assets or money, but that happens when you're older, that can be some really terrifying stuff. And so can you tell us about kind of your ups and downs that you've been through in life?
Yeah, and it's not something that I'm adverse to talking about because, quite frankly, I'm very proud of it. It's that old story. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. The Mike Tyson thing,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely true. And I'll simply relate my last experience, and that was that after having been heavily involved in the information technology space for quite a while, both in hardware and software, I had an opportunity to get involved in an energy-related business, and I did. Long story short, it simply didn't work out, and it came to a point 2 years ago where I had to make a decision either to stick with it or to once again pivot. And I decided that I would get back to what I always did best, and that's as a financial planner. I spent several weeks interviewing with all the major companies. I wanted to find a place where my age would be a benefit rather than a detriment. Nobody's going to hire somebody my age, no matter what my background is. And those of you who care to check me up on LinkedIn will see that I've got quite a diverse background, which I'm very proud of. But it left me no option except to find another 1099 opportunity. And I just went back to what I did best back in the 80s. And I'm proud that I joined Banker's Life and worked very hard, worked out of the Charlotte office for a year and worked hard enough and smart enough to wind up being the Rookie of the Year for our office up there of 200 people. So, pretty good for an old guy.
Oh yeah, and so I'm curious about how you sort of climb the ranks, right? Because like there are some people that they're skilled like you and they work really hard and they're smart like you, but then they don't necessarily like win these awards or like succeed with their coworkers, right? They don't build their relationships, and so as far as excelling in what you do and standing out in the workplace, do you have anything to share? Like, is there a secret to you winning Rookie of the Year or like performing so well?
I think there's a couple of them, a couple of paradigms that I literally live by. One of which is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Another is, I copy like a monkey, work like a mule. When I joined Bankers Life, they have a process that worked, and I simply worked that process, worked hard. I worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week to get things going, and simply kept my nose down, get out there. Believe it or not, with Bankers Life, the most successful people build their initial business by going out and door knocking, which is quite extraordinary in today's day and age. And when I first joined, they told me that's the best way to be successful. And again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I worked their program, and it worked. And I had a lot of fun, met a lot of people, learn my business, learn my trade again, because I had to get relicensed and go through everything. But just, follow the bouncing ball and, most especially keep your nose down and keep your tail in gear and work hard.
Awesome. And so, and this is like, it's very simplistic advice, but it still needs to be restated because I think that people, and maybe you think too, they make things too complicated. And then their pride, ego gets in the way as well. And there's value in being a lifetime student and just saying like, hey, maybe I need to read the instruction manual and just see how things are done. And I think like when a bunch of years ago, I was sitting in my car and I was like, hey, let me read the owner's manual just to kind of see there's a few buttons I'm not even sure what they do. And then I think a few years ago, I was blown away by some lady and we were talking about like internet marketing and search engine optimization. And she's like, have you ever gone to the Wikipedia page for search engine optimization and just read what was there and I did, and I was like, I don't think I'd ever done that. I hadn't just gone back to the basics, and when I did, I was like, hey, I was making a few things too complicated. I didn't know that there was this and there was that term, and then there's that. So there's the aspect of like the book learning, and then there's the modeling of what has worked, right? There's the let me make sure I have the basics, but also when people have uh, taken the actions I'm about to take and achieve the results that I want, what have they done? And then just go and look at what they did. And of course, there's things to figure it out, but I think that that definitely puts you on the right foot forward. And so these sort of scrappy stories, I think they're a lot of fun to hear about, right? From just like starting over. And so in the first like 30 or 60 days, you say 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. So did you do the door knocking, and like how many doors was that in that
Oh yeah,
period
I
of
mean,
time?
absolutely. When I first joined, I had no idea that door knocking was going to be part of it. If I go way back to the time when I was first married, I was working three jobs, one of which was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door. So I go back door knocking a long time. And when they told me that the most successful agents in the company still go out and door knock, 3 4 days a week, I said, okay, if it works for them, it'll work for me. So yeah, we went out, and I went out with my mentor. I lived an hour and a half away from the territory that I was working, so I had to leave the house every morning at 7 o'clock to meet him for 8:30 to get our schedule, and we would go knock 20, 30, 40 doors, and we basically would door knock all week until we set 10 appointments. You set 10 appointments, you keep seven. You keep seven, you write three, and I did that, and as a way of life for several months, and the end result was I had a 6-figure income and wound up Rookie of the Year. So I'm pretty proud of all of that.
Yeah, you made the math work. And the modern day equivalent of that I know I've been using is LinkedIn. And I know that you signed up with Mike and those guys to get that figured out, but like it even there's like these transferable skills, right? And there's a lot of things that worked decades ago, and those principles are timeless. It's just the technology has updated, and some of this math that you're mentioning, like my brain kind of goes through, like, I had to do some door knocking for Boy Scouts for fundraising when I was a kid, and I had the people not answer, be rude, say no, slam the door in my face. And at the time, I was just a kid, so I kind of like had a lot of negative self-talk about that, right? And I dreaded it. But then I feel like by the time I got to the end of that, I had a tougher skin. And then I applied those skills to LinkedIn these days. And I think like, okay, what's my math? I know if I have 25 conversations from start to finish, we touch on these things, it will lead to a sale. So when I get people saying no, it changes it from bad to good, right? Because they say, hey, I've got no number 17, no number 18. I'm so close to making the math work, and we persevere. And so you mentioned, I'm curious real quick about the math, because you said, okay, you did like 30 or 40 knocking on doors, but like how many doors did it take to get your 10 appointments?
Some weeks 10, some weeks 50. And there's
Okay.
absolutely no consistency to it. The only consistency had to be that you just kept working until you got it done. And that was the key. One of the things that I learned very, very early on is don't make any assumptions about anything. We all know what assume spells,
Oh yeah.
and you just have to have a plan, work the plan. All the things that we've all been taught, all know, but working them as opposed to knowing them is the downfall of most people. I don't mean that egotistically. I've trained a lot of salespeople, and I work hard to continue to train myself every day. And the whole idea of just doing it, doing what you need to do every day to be successful. All the things we've heard, they're all out there. There's only a fraction of us that actually, stick with those principles and build on it day after day.
100%. Only 3% of people have written goals that they regularly revisit. So why not be part of the 3%? And it seems like there's a lot built into what you said there, as far as like being humble and being grateful and saying, I'm not too good to do this. If even those top salespeople, even like as far as what they've achieved, the income they have, the clients they have, and they're still doing those base level tasks that still work, well, then you yourself are not too good for it. And so you built yourself back up. You do the knocking on doors, you do the appointments, you do the funnel, you build the relationship, you help people. And so if someone is curious about this solution that you provide, can you unpack that a little bit? Like, who is it for and what is the benefit?
Yeah, the audience that I work with basically is the 55 and older crowd. If they are pre-retirement, we want to work with them to plan what the next 10, 15 years is going to be so that they can achieve their dreams. Part of that is getting ready to transition from their existing retirement accounts and the investment accounts that they have built. When people were heavily invested in 2008, when we had the terrible crash where people lost 30, sometimes 40% of what they had accumulated, they were still young enough that they had the years to be able to make up for it. Now in 2025, somebody who's 55, 60 years old, they don't have that luxury of time. They have to take a more conservative stance. So what we do with bankers is to work with them. A lot of people aren't even aware that there's something called an in-service rollover. That once you're right after the 2008 debacle, Congress made a ruling that once in your lifetime you can do a transfer to safety from your existing accounts into another account, and there's no taxable event. And Bankers Life is one of the leaders in that field. We have a product. It's an indexed annuity that resets itself every year. Right now, it's guaranteeing just under 8% for the next 12 months. But the beautiful part about it is when the market does make its next correction, and I'm not going to guess when that's going to be, but at some point the market's going to make another correction. Everybody's going to start to lose some of that money that they have invested and attained. With the Bankers Life product, it's guaranteed never to go down. Whatever you put in never goes down. Even in the down market, it goes up 1%. And when the market is going up, you go up with it. So when you take the math and extend the math to always going up and never having that loss when it goes down, the differences are in safety, and the differences in what you wind up with in real monthly income is significant. And what we do is we take a holistic approach for our client base that includes Medicare, that includes long-term care, which most people put their head in the sands on. I'm an expert in that area, and taking a good look at their life insurance and this investment opportunity. So the end result is we have a holistic approach. We sit down with them once a year at a minimum to review the conditions, the marketplace, what their health is, and make the adjustments along the way to be sure that we're staying on track.
Very nice. And I love the holistic approach because, like, and I'm sure you've seen this too. Sometimes people just focus on the cash value, or like, how much am I growing? And you're like, well, hey, you also need to look at long-term care. You also need to look at Medicare. Some of these things that may be a little more dicey that you either avoided or thinking, oh, I need to talk to this person for that, this person for that. They're not talking to each other. They're not integrated. So this sounds like a great solution. And it seems like when there's someone who's knowledgeable, such as yourself, then you can kind of mix the tried and true principles. Like we were saying, that concept of, well, when you're younger, you can earn the money back, you can be riskier. But then when you're older, then now there's less time. So that's kind of something like a timeless principle. But then there's like the kind of the nooks and crannies, right? There's the details like, well, hey, did you know about post 2008? There's this rollover thing that you can do once in your life. And so it's very useful to be able to like pick and choose and kind of combine those into a strategy, right? And not just be like a one trick pony, or not just be someone that's uninformed, misinformed. You can have someone at your back who knows this stuff, who spends all day, every day helping similar people in your situation to make this old age thing happen. Because if we're lucky, we'll all experience old age, but then there's all these extra headaches that can happen, and it's some scary stuff to think about, right? The body might deteriorate, mind might deteriorate, and we need to have that solid bedrock foundation in place. And so in our last few minutes of our conversation here, Jan, we talked about a lot of stuff, but then money is such a weird sort of beast, right? Some people, no matter what they do, lose money. Some people avoid it, don't understand it. And so in all of your decades of experience, do you have like a number one piece of advice as far as money goes?
I think the best thing that I can do to sum it up is that you have to stay aware and on top of it. And one of the values that Bankers Life and I bring to our client base is a constant revisiting of both the current economic conditions, the current health conditions of each client, and the overall market conditions that are out there. Because one thing for sure is ever going to be the same, and that's change. Change is going to occur. The ups and downs of the market, the ups and downs of this crazy world that we live in, we need to reevaluate constantly and constantly look at what's right for the moment, taking into account what's right for the future.
That's very wise. What you focus on grows, basically. And I can relate to when I was younger. I didn't even know what my income was. I owned a business, but I was afraid to look at it. Bills would come in the mail. I was afraid to even open up envelopes. And then once I started taking it seriously, then the income and the money was more consistent. And then at first it was scary, but then I kind of got that tougher skin that we've been talking about a few times in our conversation. And then it turned into, well, I look at my money daily. And then you hear about these how people, they look at their bank accounts every day, they look at the numbers every day, just a few minutes per day. That way they know if things are on track. And I love what you said about like just revisiting yearly, because it's not a one-time thing. It should be a habit. And if you don't pay attention to it, then your money will just go and run off somewhere else, right? It's like if you're married or in a relationship or something, and you don't pay attention to your partner, they're going to go find someone else. And probably the same thing with your money. And so how can people take action on this? You're on LinkedIn, you have your Banker's Life page. So if someone says, this guy Jan, he seems really smart, I want to have this conversation. I love the belly to belly, go in person, the kitchen table concept. So how can someone start this conversation with you?
Appreciate that. And, the easiest way is, my name is Jan Levine. You see it on the screen. And the company, you see it, Banker's Life. I'm proud of both of those things. So the easiest way to reach me is just jan.levine@bankerslife.com. You can go up there and we'll set an appointment. There's no obligation. There's no sales pressure. Whole idea is to build trust. And that's what I've done most of my life is build trust. And I'm very, very proud that the clients that I have trust me implicitly because I've earned that right.
Yes. And that's a very healthy way to go about it, right? You say, here's what I'm all about. Here's what I have to say. Here's my information. And if you're curious, if you think we're right for each other, then email jan.levine@bankerslife.com and explain your situation. And then Jan will say, well, hey, here's what we can do moving forward. And you build the trust and you have that conversation. So jan.levine@bankerslife.com. On LinkedIn, the username is Jan M. Levine. And before I let you go here, Jan, it's the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you. I put you on the spot a little bit and ask for a fun quote or lesson that has served you in business and life. That way we have a little soundbite at the end of the show. So what comes to mind for you as far as a fun quote or lesson?
Well, I talked about building trust, and a long time ago, I created what I call a paradigm of trust. And trust is like a party balloon. When you take that party balloon out of the package, it's flat and lifeless. In order to make it have any value, you have to blow an enormous amount of energy into that balloon to inflate it. So it says happy anniversary or happy birthday. Once you've gone through all of that energy and reached that pinnacle, if you put the tiniest pinprick in that balloon, I don't care how much more energy you push into it, that balloon is going to deflate. So trust is 100%. And unless you're 100% of the time, you're going to lose the trust. I build my life, I build my client's life on trust on both sides so that we can reach an attainable goal.
That's a powerful metaphor. I love it. So we need to focus on that trust and build it, cultivate it. And the very first step for you, trusting Jan and trusting your money and what you've worked hard for and trusting your future and having a solid plan is emailing jan.levine@bankerslife.com. Check him out on LinkedIn and check him out on his Banker's Life page. So that way you don't have to go this alone. You can have the assistance of someone who knows his stuff, loves his stuff, has helped others, and wants to help you. Jan Levine, wonderful speaking with you today.
My pleasure. Best to all of you. And I look forward to speaking with anybody that has the need, and I'll create the trust that I have built with all of my clients since the 1980s. Thanks, Robert. Great to be here.